welcome back to another episode of the Variant Cast, where it is time to rise up for a dawn of a new episode. And I couldn't fit in War or Kingdom, but how you doing, Trent?
It's gonna be a war of podcast objectives today. Doing good. Just fresh off watching War of Planet of the Apes for the second time this week, and ready to hop into it.
Wait, you just were really missing wars? I
Uh,
don't.
well, here's the thing. So we were actually going to record early in the week, so I watched it that day, and then I never watched it with Kirsten, so we watched it last night because she had never watched it.
Gotcha. Okay. All right.
Yeah.
So, if you guys haven't gathered by now, we're going to be talking about the Planet of the Apes movies. In particular, the 2011 reboot trilogy. Obviously, Kingdom is in theaters right now. We'll be talking about that in a future episode, I'm sure. But if you are curious, it is getting good reviews. So, watch it or don't. It's shout out William H. Macy.
Is he in the new one?
Yeah, he's top billing.
That's sick.
Top,
Love that.
top
I
four.
love that.
Yeah.
Yeah, excited to see this new one. Love this franchise, and I'm excited to watch the new one whenever I get around to it.
Yeah, this has always been a franchise I've just not touched because it came out in that, if there's like a movie that came out like 2011 to 2013, most likely I didn't watch it. I was in my non-watching movie stage.
Yeah.
And also, like, I didn't really understand what was going on just by like the titles and the trailers. Like, I was very confused by the world, so I never jumped into it. But finally, I had an excuse to here, and I was pleasantly surprised, especially by I'll get into my takes on it, but definitely surprised just by the amount of heart in these movies. I
Yeah.
kind of always felt like they were like Transformers adjacent, and in a way they are, but like in a good way, not in a Transformersy way. They're quality action movies with actual heart in them. It's crazy.
Yeah. Heart and just like very character driven. I always loved the first Planet of the Apes Rise because you'd never really seen like that type of sci-fi movie before, and especially where it ends off, where it's like where it kind of ends very ambitiously, where it's like, oh, something's about to happen. But yeah, I always loved that aspect to it, and not to mention just like the CGI is just incredible, and that's probably one of the reasons why I got into movies and why I love movies so much, is just like watching the behind the scenes of this type of movie, and just seeing the type of stuff that can be put on screen is just incredible.
Yeah, I think that's if you're like me and you didn't watch the movie and like you're just vaguely aware of it. I think one thing that a lot of people saw in the marketing of this movie is, I remember they would release just like things and not be super clear that it was like movie promo, uh,
Yeah.
or someone would take it and re-upload it without the context that it's from Planet of the Apes, and
Hmm.
people would eat it up because of how impressive it really is. Especially just the movements of the animals. You could tell there was someone just watching apes for months to get their movements down, because
Yeah.
it's really impressive. There's so much time that goes into that kind of stuff. And something as trivial as a short scene of a monkey clapping or jumping around, or just the way they walk, is really impressive. And they also have to put a bit more fantasy element into that as well, with the apes doing things that a normal ape wouldn't do. They had to kind of be like, okay, if an ape could shoot an assault rifle, how would he do it?
Yeah.
Some like one-handed, throwing it around like that, and that's what they did. So,
Yeah.
it's super interesting just looking at the little details, like you're saying, with the models and everything, and Sometimes I will find myself, especially in the quieter scenes, just kind of hyperfixating on that stuff.
Yeah, like this movie does a really good job of making you think that everything is real when you know that it's not. And another like story element that I loved was uh how each movie is just so different. Like the first movie, you get kind of like your classic sci-fi, like laboratory type movie, and then the second one you kind of get your little bit of a Dark Knight Rises a little bit with like a Joker-esque type character like rising up against the norm. And then in the third one you just get like a war you just get like a straight up war movie that these things like shouldn't necessarily go together, but they do, and they do incredibly well.
Yeah, it kind of reminds you of just something that the MCU, when it was working really well with like Winter Soldier and stuff, being like the espionage movie, and Iron Man 3 being a, kind of boots on the ground Christmas coming of age a little bit for a midlife crisis anxiety story.
Yeah.
And they just use the universe as a device to tell whatever story they want to tell. And
Mhm.
you would think that would be a lot harder to do with literal apes, but they do it pretty flawlessly. I wish there was more like world building a little bit. And I'll kind of get into that when we go over the movies. So let's go ahead and just jump into it with Rise of the Planet of the Apes, released in 2011, directed by Rupert Wyatt, which I wasn't in the film community when in 2011 I was 11 years old, so I didn't really keep up with the production, but I imagine it was pretty crazy that a guy who had only directed a short film in 2008 got a massive budget to do a reboot of a franchise like this. Literally does not have a feature length film, and he got selected for this. Kind of crazy, but I think he did a pretty good job, all things considered.
Yeah, I think especially having a franchise where this part of the story hadn't really been told before, and they're kind of starting over and kind of telling the origin of the simian flu. I thought that they did a really good job of blending the elements of the previous Planet of the Apes movies that people liked, but also yeah, just like I said before, it's just like one of those sci-fi movies where that I love that's just like half of it takes place in a lab. They're trying to do something goes wrong, and then chaos ensues, you know?
Yeah, I there was about like 30 minutes into the film where I was just like, okay, but where Monk? Uh, and then it starts getting into it. I think it's a bit slow to start, but I understand why they have to do that. I will say Caesar is a crazy thing to name a little monkey. Like, I'm gonna name this little monkey Caesar. Yeah, that's
Yeah.
completely normal thought process there for him. Uh, but I think that this is my favorite story. I think it could have been tightened up. You could have maybe cut like 8 minutes from the opening. There's times though where I think the script does struggle, and that's interesting because you have an inexperienced director, but he didn't write this. There was like these are well seasoned screenwriters, and I feel like they really brought the movie down just with a few like not logical inconsistencies, but just like writing things that are just like, oh, what are we doing here? Like he knows the type of ape Caesar is, and he still like just like gives him over to this. I know it was court ordered, but it was very obviously not a good place. And Caesar can communicate with him, and he doesn't like go back the next day. It's like, hey, is everything good? Like he just leaves him, and he's just like,
Yeah.
ah. So it's kind of frustrating in that sense where it's like, why would you do that? Uh, and there's later. just experimenting the drug on his dad. I don't think that's necessarily bad because they set up, how desperate he is. And there's the, oh, this is no way to live. So he was taking it into his own hands. And I think that
Yeah.
gives his character some shape, some edge to it. James Franco though, man, I 2011 I understand. Just don't think he's the guy for a performance like this.
Yeah, I always looked at him as I liked him in the role just because I don't know, maybe it doesn't really seem like. Actually, I don't really know why I'm defending this.
I'm just
I was
saying,
like,
like, if
not,
if
no,
that's
now that I think about it, like James Franco doesn't really take me as scientist, doesn't really take me as scientist type, and it is funny thinking about how the whole Planet of the Apes started from James Franco.
and the entire like wipeout with the virus started from a guy not like putting his mask on, like
Yeah,
entirety of humanity just wiped out because of that boy right there. Uh, it's it's a strange film, and it's very 2011 written on it at times, and I say that not like it's not overly early 2010s,
hmm
just like with some of the writing choices. And this is why I felt like it was a bit transformery at the beginning. It's like, oh, okay, we have to have the human characters that are gonna like interact with the apes and stuff. And I thought for sure he was gonna like kind of live happily ever after with Caesar. Maybe not happily ever after, but like at least they're reunited and they're chill at the end or something. Which
yeah,
I not really. Um, it's I liked all the stuff with Caesar growing up. I think that was my favorite part of the movie, was just seeing him grow up, seeing where his morals come from, and then seeing that expanded upon in the sequel of like just how he came to get those morals. The scene where he says no
hmm
for the first time is super good. Like that is like, oh, like
yeah, chills.
the yeah. And it shouldn't give you chills because it's goofy.
Yeah,
It's a CGI ape yelling no, but it's set up so well, and it's given so much weight to it that what is happening is monumental and monumental. That doesn't seem right. Anyways, they set it up so well and they frame it so well, to the point where these things that should be silly actually do hit, and I think they did a really good job for the era in terms of CGI, obviously, and being able to communicate the emotion in these apes, even the ones that aren't technically like greater beings yet with superior intelligence. They're
yeah,
still all really well done, and it was cool just seeing like the scenes of Caesar interacting with other apes for the first time.
yeah, definitely. The Yeah, and to that point, the character arcs that, like, even the mini character arcs that people go through, like Rocket, the one who is kind of like the bully at the beginning, who's like picking on him when he first arrived there, and seeing him like seeing Caesar win him over, and then him letting out the gorilla, and then the orangutan Maurice, how he was like an ex circus, so like an ex circus orangutan, so he has that like ability to communicate through sign language with Caesar. So he was like kind of the in with the other apes almost a little bit. So yeah, just all really good stuff, and yeah, I love this movie back when it came out.
Can we talk about the facility for a second? The ape facility, like those don't exist in real life. The
No.
apes, yeah, come on, they're ape. Like there's apes are celebrated. They're not throwing them in.
Was that? I assume it was supposed to be like a just like a dog kennel.
Yeah, it was, but like it's
And they're
I don't
just
think
like,
ape
oh,
kennels
yeah.
exist.
No, they definitely did not. And definitely not in San Francisco.
Oh yeah, that's probably the last place you would get an ape kennel. uh, But yeah, I think overall this was close to my favorite. If there was a few things cut down and, you know, few different things with the script, I think it would be my favorite just because I love the kind of origin story of Caesar. I've
Yeah.
always heard people talk about like, oh, Caesar's such a badass, and I'm just like, it's a CGI monkey. Like, what are we talking about here? And like, but it like I feel when he feels in the first movie, and I think that does get lost in the other movies a little bit just because there's so many different apes and they're kind of hard to distinguish and stuff. So it's kind of hard to get that same like feeling I got in the first one with like Caesar and just seeing him like do things, simple stuff like swing on like redwood trees and stuff. Like that was just really cool the first time
Yeah.
he got to do that. And then when he goes back to the house, and all of the stuff with the window, all of the window stuff, was amazing. Like
Yeah.
him initially, like sitting through the window, him in the kennel, then drawing the window and putting his head on it, and then at the end when he goes there, and looks out of it one last time, like all of that is just so good.
Yeah. I wonder if they knew how big of a thing like that symbol was going to be like to this whole universe, because it seems like
Right.
the whole universe is built off of that one symbol, which was the window. But yeah, it also symbolized, because they called him bright eyes, so you could see that's like an eye with a sparkle in it, and it's also the hope of or the symbol of hope. So yeah, just all the metaphors I feel like adding up, and yeah, just very beautifully done.
Yeah. Onto Dawn of the Planet of the Apes. So, Rise came out in 2011, directed by Rupert Wyatt. They switched up the director. All of these have different, or no, not all of them. But the next two are directed by Matt Reeves, and then Kingdom is directed by Wes Ball. So, uh, they've gone through a few directors, but Matt Reeves, I think he was, what was he doing before this? It was, he did 10 Cloverfield Lane, in between them, but before this, it was Cloverfield's, Let Me In, The Yards, The Pallbearer, and Under Siege 2, Dark Territory. He was the screenwriter for. But Matt Reeves is kind of a household name now when we talk about directors, but when he got this in 2014 was less so. And I think this probably put him on the map for like mainstream, like kind of awareness here.
Yeah.
And this is my personal favorite out of the three. I'm curious what you would say.
My I would have said Rise before I rewatched them, but
Hmm.
I think War is probably my favorite.
Okay, okay.
Yeah.
Uh, Dawn. The reason I like Dawn is because you do get you get some human stuff. There definitely my frustration sets in with the questions I have about this universe when it comes to this movie because like humans are still alive, but it's very like fallouty, like they're in settlements, they're uh just random groups, there's no communication or backbone, but like did the virus wipe out the whole world?
I believe
Like
so.
so like what's going on in Europe? There's no apes in Europe, really?
I think it
I
was
mean,
just
there's
like an
probably
air
some apes.
yeah, I think there was just like transferred eventually throughout the entire world.
So, what like, when it comes to that, like, they apparently there's part of the army left. There's also there it's very vague on what actually still exists or still is around, and I think one thing I do wish they did more of, and I understand why they don't because budgetary is like the remnants of the old world. I like seeing that stuff.
Yeah.
Uh, we don't get a lot of that in these movies. It's mainly just done in forests and stuff. Like
Mhm.
somehow the virus also just wiped out all major highways. So but I think for what you do get in Dawn, you get probably just, I think, the tightest story in terms of telling a, just, I guess, themes. That's what I'm trying to say. Themes.
Yeah.
The themes of apes and humans, and having two species like that on the same planet, uh, as well as, correct me if I'm wrong on his name. Is it Toga?
Koba?
The to Toba?
Koba.
Toga. Koba. Why was I thinking it was a T? Koba. Koba. So you get the first like villain ape, Koba.
Mhm.
Obviously there was some ape antagonist bully in the first one, but this is the first like actual antagonist that is a ape. And he is awesome.
With
He is
reasonable
so
intentions too. Yeah.
Yeah.
And like his whole backstory on how he's been tortured his whole life by humans, so that's why he wants to get revenge on them. Like, just really great stuff.
It's this is what I was talking about when it's like, it's silly monkeys, but also it's telling a bit more complex of a story, and it's really just an analogy for what humans have already done, and what humans did early on in civilization, of like interacting with other tribes, interacting with other races, other cultures and stuff. It was always not similar to this, but in the same kind of unknowing of it all.
Yeah.
And like that action scene where they storm the humans, and you almost get to see the difference in strategic advancements, kind of.
Yeah.
Because the humans are ex-military, they have a plan, and the apes are just on horses charging down the middle, and getting picked off.
Yeah.
And that's kind of a cool payoff, because you get to see in the next movie, when there's an actual war, they do advance past that, because their brains, they be moving pretty quick. So what took humanity 200 years takes them a couple days, I guess. But I think this movie, really, really solid. This one has a 91% on Rotten Tomatoes. Rise has an 82%, and I think that's just the difference in more focus. There's not like two different things going on,
Mhm.
because in Rise we didn't really even talk about the whole Alzheimer's thing, but that's given a lot of time, and obviously since everyone just ends up dying, none of it really matters in the end,
Yeah.
because everyone's dead. So I guess they did cure Alzheimer's in that sense. Uh, what would you say, like, in terms of these movies and the director switch, do you think I think it's noticeable in terms of scale,
Yeah.
Matt Reeves.
That's what I was gonna say when you were talking about him earlier and how this kind of put him on the map. This really seems like it's a huge scale movie, and a huge scale movie with like a center character that feels like we like you said, we don't really we connect with him. I feel like a little bit less because there is so much more, but there still is that through line of the character that we know and somewhat relate to, um, and but also dealing with this large scale with like the apes like battling the humans, and just the whole final battle, or like I guess the final scene with Koba and Caesar at the end, like that was all really well done, and I think that's probably what put him over the top and put him on the map.
Yeah, I think the climax of this movie is very good. Honestly, pretty much, I think the first act is slow. but from there it picks up and it really does have a lot of emotion behind it. There's kind of this cool uh like misunderstanding. Generally this kind of stuff upsets me, but it makes sense from a writing point of view. Like, why would the apes think that, you know, Caesar was shot by another ape? Like, there's no precedent that they would ever think that. And it makes sense as to why they would want to, you know, go to war against the humans, because they killed their leader, they killed their king, they killed their uh really a near god to them. Let's be honest. Like,
Yeah.
he's like ape Jesus.
Yeah.
So I you can understand the motives and the intent, and it all makes sense. And I think that's really what I like. I think it's really tightly written, and same thing with the third in the, I guess you could say, trilogy, but obviously we just got another one, so it's not really that. But War for the Planet of the Apes came out in 2017, also directed by Matt Reeves and starring Woody Harrelson as the main
Yeah.
villain in this one.
No trilogy is complete without the H man.
It's true. You can't put a nice bow on it without it. This one, they don't put him in a wig, unfortunately. They keep him
Yeah.
bald.
Mhm.
Yeah, real tragic. This one's hardcore. Like, I this is like
Straight off the
real.
bat, like just like straight away, you see that he said that it says like monkey killer on his helmet, and it's like that you're about to watch some shit.
Yeah, when I saw that, I kind of laughed. I was like, this is goofy. Like, there's no way. Like, this
Yeah,
is actually what this movie's about to be. And then that this movie is about to be that, but it's not going to be goofy. It is going to
full
actually
seriousness. Yeah,
make sense, and not like I want, like, in theory I should be laughing at what's happening, but it's just so well done. You can't. If like I've gotten more emotion from this movie than I have any war movie that I've watched in a long, long time. Like, this was so real. There was so much emotion. Andy Serkis obviously killed this. All three movies, we didn't really talk about that, but I guess the last two. I don't think not the first one, but last
he's
two.
probably in it at the very end. I'm assuming because
Right. He's just not billed.
yeah,
So I'm
yeah,
just looking at the top billing. So he actually gets top billing for Dawn and War. And it was he really is able to convey a lot of emotions
mhm,
through that CGI ape face. I don't
yeah,
know everything that goes into it, but obviously, like you were saying right off the bat, Woody Harrelson just kills his wife and son, and I felt so sad at that
yeah,
moment.
yeah, devastating, and yeah, just so many emotions that he could convey, and there was a little bit I feel like there's a hint of Andy Serkis coming through Caesar in this one, in the very emotional moments, just because like you get so emotional that like you that ape voice goes away a little bit, like when he first sees Cornelius and he's like my son's alive, like I feel like see a little bit of Andy Serkis coming through there, but yeah, he absolutely killed this. um the the physicality of it, the emotion of it, everything. I just don't think anybody is gonna do an 8 better.
Yeah, I mean, no one. I guess people are getting the opportunity to try now.
Yeah,
But
with help from Andy Serkis, apparently.
yeah, he's coaching. Maybe that's what William H Macy is doing. He's always had an interesting face like that, so I could see him doing a solid ape, and
Yeah,
I think that's that's something that isn't talked about enough really with actors is how well of an ape they could do.
Yeah,
James Franco could not do an ape, not even
definitely not.
close.
No.
Woody Harrelson probably could do an ape, but he doesn't do an ape here. He does a really good villain, like a really, really good villain here.
Yes.
That is just kind of the worst, kind of the absolute worst, but like also, can you blame him? Not really. Like he's just evil. Sometimes I just like the guy just to be a little evil.
Yeah. And that's the one thing that this trilogy was missing was somebody who's just a little bit evil, you know. Nobody
Yeah,
like may have some a little bit blurred intentions, but yeah, most for the most part was just evil.
yeah, just evil, and he gets his comeuppance at the end, and there's some really cool scenes with like I don't know if his name is Donkey, but he calls him Donkey or
Yeah.
something like
Bad
that.
ape.
And
The
Bad
best ape.
Bad Ape was interesting and also just like a really cool world building thing where you're just like, yeah, I guess that makes sense that if these apes have just like that kind of intelligent, you would just get these weirdos.
Yeah.
Like there's gonna be weirdos,
And especially
especially if they're
somebody
left
who
isolated.
yeah, left isolated and like were talked to their whole life. Like I get it from some of the ones that were out in the wild, but for the ones that were just like talked to at the zoo every day, like it makes sense that he would pick up a little bit of the language and try to reciprocate that.
Yeah. So shout out Bad Ape. I think out of the three, like I said, I think Donna is my favorite. But I don't. It's like by such a small margin with all three of these.
Yeah.
All of these movies, like they go together really, really well. Like really, really well. There's not one where you're like, oh, I can't wait to get done with this one so we can get to the next one because that's when it really gets good. Everyone is like required viewing, and not in a bad way where you have to
Hmm.
like remember a bunch of different like lore details. It's in a very simple, you'll see little elements called back to, and those little elements they're always really well done. So I had a really good time watching this little trilogy.
Yeah. It was fun going back and rewatching it.
But that'll do it for our little, I guess, first impression for me and kind of retrospective for you of the Planet of the Apes movies. And we're gonna go ahead and get into some news now.
Yeah. So Mr. and Mrs. Smith, which we reviewed a couple months ago. If you want to check out that review, it's on our page. But yeah, it has been renewed for season 2 with the surprising news that Donald Glover and Maya Erskine will not be returning. So,
Mm,
very interesting news. Some people kind of suspected this, thinking that they were going to switch up the Smiths every season, which could be a fun format. But I would also like to see Donald Glover and Maya Erskine show up later in the series to I don't know because they were kind of uncovering a mystery about the organization that they were working for.
yeah, I think that would make some sense, like having this overarching kind of story about the organization, but also going season by season to new Mr. and Mrs. Smiths. I think that's a solid way of doing that series. So let's see if they keep it up or if this will just be like a season 2 that doesn't do as well and then we forget about a season 3.
Yeah,
So
yeah.
we'll see.
Sticking on Amazon, The Boys was officially renewed for season 5 ahead of season 4 coming out. So season 4 comes out next month, and sounds like they're already in development of season 5. So keeping this A train rolling.
Yeah, I mean, it's not surprising, but it is good to hear. And The Voice is kind of Amazon's mascot in a weird way, which is crazy that an R-rated or yeah, R-rated superhero streaming show is like the face of a streaming company. But that's the world we live in, and The Boys absolutely deserves it. So heck
Yeah.
yeah, we got season 5 on the way.
So Nicolas Cage has officially signed on to play a live action Spider-Man noir for Amazon Prime. Sticking on Amazon Prime, a lot of Amazon Prime news. But so yeah, the person who made The Punisher is going to be uh doing the show or going to be the showrunner, and Henry Bradbeer, who did Fleabag, which I've heard good things about, is directing the first 2 episodes. So um Nicolas Cage signs on to this. Definitely gonna watch. Um, Spider-Man Noir is an interesting character. I'll definitely see what they have to do to or what they have to do with him. You know.
I mean, I think the big news is definitely like how I feel, I guess, like just free Sony is being with the Spider-Man IP. Like there was
Yeah.
obviously probably a lot of rumors with the Invincible uh crossover that didn't end up coming to fruition, but the fact that this then came through is a surprise. Obviously, Sony doesn't have their own streaming service. They've been working to try to acquire Paramount Plus or not I guess Paramount in general, for a minute now, but that seems to be kind of stalling at the moment. And now we get this news that they're going to be going with Prime Video for this series. I don't know how involved Sony will be, or if this will connect at all to the across. If this is the same character, is it? Who knows? Voiced by the same guy, but
Yeah.
obviously two different mediums, one being live action, one being animated. I understand why they did live action, much cheaper, and I'm super excited to see Nicolas Cage in this role.
Yeah. I did hear that Phil Lord and Chris Miller, they just signed a deal with Sony, so they are going to be executive producers on all Spider-Man Sony TV projects.
Interesting.
Yeah.
Well,
And apparently this has been a deal for a while. They've been trying to get a Silk TV series made, and it was just released this week that they canceled it after it underwent a couple different versions of the script, and the studio wanted less Silk in it. So that tells you how things are going at Sony.
shout out Sony.
So Anya Taylor-Joy, she is starring in Furiosa, a new Mad Max uh, movie coming out, and apparently she has about 30 lines of dialogue in the movie. So this goes back to what we were talking about with Denis Villeneuve, how he was essentially like, dialogue is dead. Like, if you could watch a movie and just understand what's happening, good for you. No,
Yeah,
yeah,
no, I get what they're saying. I understand what they're saying, and I get how that could be more interesting to a director or a filmographer. How that gives you more time to do more complex shots. You could do more with the audio and stuff like that. I can get all of that, but just I definitely disagree with the sentiment that George Miller is kind of pushing here. It's like it's its own art form, and just skipping out on it because it's hard, and you may not write good dialogue, and then turning around and like kind of being like, yeah, this is what smart people do. It's like I'm sure you could have totally wrote like great dialogue, great character writing. That's all so easy. Could have just knocked that out in an afternoon, but you chose not to because you're above that.
yeah,
Is kind of how I take it, which I definitely disagree with because I think dialogue is um, my favorite part about movies is characters, and I think you can tell powerful stories without saying
yeah,
them outright, but it's hard to actually make a character that people care about without dialogue.
yeah. I totally agree, and Anya Taylor-Joy also said that this was the most alone that she's ever felt on a movie set, saying that she went days without ever talking to to anybody filming her scenes, and she felt truly alone, which interesting way of making a movie. But apparently she saw the
Yeah.
final product and was like, you know, it all paid off for it all paid off in the end. So yeah, we'll see how that turns out. But sticking with some Donald Glover some Donald Glover news, he says that the Community movie is not on hold because of him. He says that he's getting roasted online, but he swears that it's not him that's holding up the Community movie.
The This is funny because I think if you asked anyone that kind of pays attention why the Community movie isn't being made, everyone's like, "Oh, I think they're just waiting on Donald Glover." But it was that was absolutely the thought that everyone had. So,
Yeah,
good on him for clarifying. I guess the
they probably
issue
were waiting on
is
him for a while, but then as of a couple months ago, they're probably waiting. They're probably waiting on Dan Harmon to polish the script.
yeah, and I imagine the script has been in flux this entire time. I know they've said they have had an idea for it for a while, but when you don't know exactly which cast members you're going to actually have, it's kind of hard to write a full script. So he
Yeah,
probably now knows, who's going to be there, has rough estimates for dates, and probably just like getting that, like you said, ironed out.
yeah. We got a couple Marvel movies they're about to start filming. So Fantastic Four is uh booting up, and they just cast Ralph Ineson as Galactus, who is an English actor, and they also cast fuck, what's her name, Natasha Natasha Lyonne in an undisclosed role. So both great additions to the cast, and yeah, I'm excited to see what they're cooking up.
Yep, yep. Don't know too much about him, but I also don't know what direction they're going to take Galactus. I, you know, Galactus I This is confirmation that he won't be a weird like tornado cloud, so that's good.
Yeah,
Uh, but how they're going to adapt Galactus to live action, I have no idea. I would imagine he'll be shrunk down, and
he
they'll
does
just
have the
be
ability to shrink in the comics,
yeah,
but the
yeah,
reason why I have faith in the MCU to get Galactus right is that one shot in Eternals where they had the not the not the Eternal, the whoever it was, the higher being, the like looming over the earth, and how you could kind of see him through the clouds. Like
yeah.
I saw that shot, and I was like, okay, then it gives me faith that they can do a big world eating Galactus where he's just tossing a world into his mouth.
I'm hoping so because I think that's an action set piece like no other. So hopefully we get to see that.
Yeah. The other Marvel movie that's about to start filming is Spider-Man 4. Apparently going to start filming in September or October. So around the same time that Venom 3 is coming out.
I I don't know why I've gotten to the point where like I don't believe any movie
Yeah.
that any MCU movie is actually getting made. I know
I
that
don't
these are
believe
getting
this is
made.
happening.
Yeah, like
They don't have a director.
doesn't
I don't think they have, like, there's been rumors that it's gonna have the symbiote, but like that's really the only thing that we know so far about it. I don't even know if there's a writer for, or I guess they probably have to have a writer, but yeah,
they have to, right?
it just doesn't seem
Ape,
like this movie's happening. They haven't, like, Tom Holland's going to be like the only person like cast in this movie so far, since Zendaya doesn't know who Peter is, and so does Ned. So
yeah, and Aunt May's dead. Uh, Trying to think of any other character. Flash Thompson, maybe he'll be like roommates with Flash Thompson. I could see that, but he doesn't know who Peter Parker is. No one knows who Peter Parker is. I don't know what they're doing. I don't understand this movie, but I guess I'm excited for that reason. Is I have no idea what they're gonna do, and it kind of sounds like a mess right now. But I hope not.
Yeah. The last bit of news is sticking on that topic of Spider-Man. John Watts, who directed Homecoming and No Way Home, said that whoever directs Spider, he gives advice to whoever directs Spider-Man 4 and says it doesn't look good when it's just someone swinging on a rope. You think you're gonna get there, and you say we're gonna do it all practical, but it's boring and it looks dumb. Very interesting way of I don't know, very interesting way of going about it. I mean, certainly there's ways that it can be filmed where it looks good, but it just I don't know. It's just a weird comment.
It's a very strange comment. Like I thought it was a analogy for something. Like I really don't understand why would the web swinging be all practical? Why would I even think that? What director in his right mind would be like, "Oh, we're gonna make the web swinging all practical"? That sounds like a nightmare. I'm not what.
Yeah, the only thing I could think of is like, I mean, but even then, I've seen on set footage of Tom Holland like jumping off a rope to land or whatever. So
Yeah, you could do bits and pieces practically, but like the entire process isn't gonna be completely practical. That's just logistics. If we're swinging through skyscrapers, like, yeah, I don't even understand why this was the first thing that he gave as advice, but he probably wanted to say something about the studio, and his NDA advised him against it.
yeah. So that's it with the news. But I think we're gonna get into some Unfrosted.
Unfrosted, the Netflix original Jerry Seinfeld, Amy Schumer project.
Yeah, just absolute banger
It's
cast. I loved it so
yeah.
much. If you can't sense the sarcasm in my
uh
voice, this movie was absolutely horrendous.
it's it it's strange. I'm not gonna sit here and get upset about it because
Yeah.
it's Unfrosted. I
Hmm.
watched the trailer. I knew what I was getting into.
Yeah.
I really just a fever dream though, just like
Yeah.
start to finish. It kind of feels like it's like sketch comedy, but they're like doing it live on SNL. And there's no laugh track, but they still keep in the takes that aren't good.
Yeah.
Because there's just like awful acting in this movie. Like it's terrible. And
Yeah.
like that's partly due to a lot of the cast isn't even actors like that. But it's terrible. There's child actors, they're terrible. Uh it's Jerry Seinfeld is terrible. So
Yeah.
bad in it.
Just really bad. Um the yeah, just the plot was just nothing. Like I couldn't I couldn't even for a second suspend my disbelief to believe that these are actual people, you know. And
I'm gonna ask
not that that was the point of the movie, but you know.
yeah. I'm gonna ask the question that gets asked with movies like this. Who's this for? Cause like the tone and like how it's directed would be like, oh, this is for kids. This is kids to be like, ha ha, funny. This movie that it reminded me most of was Food Fight. If you've ever heard of or seen that, uh, Food Fight was like a animated project with Charlie Sheen
Mm,
that a bunch of money got pumped into it. Then it didn't get made. Then it got made, and then it's terrible. It's animated terribly. All of the jokes are terrible. There's a bunch of like food mascots, and they just make references. But like the reason I'm asking who this is for because half of the jokes you have to be an adult to understand. A
yeah.
lot of them are time period jokes. A lot of them are weirdly pointed jokes that are just like coming at somebody. Uh, like there's this. it's just a very strange thing where it's like, it's almost like, I don't know if Jerry Seinfeld wrote most of these jokes, who wrote most of these jokes, but they felt like they were trying to say something, but they had no idea what they were trying to say. They were trying to do it though.
Yeah. Yeah, it just all went nowhere. And then yeah, the best part about the movie was Max Greenfield from New Girl, who
Yeah.
played Schmidt. And then also just like the small bit background characters that, like Chef Boyardee, like that I those tiny little bits were like really the only things that I thought were funny. But like the rest of it, like the jokes didn't really land. The directing wasn't really all that great. Like it really just felt like, yeah, like I was watching Saturday Night Live produced by Netflix.
Yeah. And the Chef Boyardee is just like the one good sketch. Like this is like
Yeah.
almost a sketch comedy movie. And the one good sketch was when they lined all of them up. But it also was like, okay, what's happening? Why
Yeah.
did in the narrative of the movie, why did a personification of Chef Boyardee even like come in? Come in. It didn't make any. I'm gonna try to recap the plot for those that are curious what this movie's about. It takes place in Battle Creek, Michigan, which is a real place where headquartered Post and Kellogg, and it's like supposed to be this business like rivalry thing, but it's in like this surrealistic world in the '60s, and there's just a bunch of things happening. I don't like they're in like the pastry wars. They're
Yeah,
they're each trying
it's
to
like the
make like a
space race, but like you're trying to figure out how to have a dry breakfast.
and and that it is like the space race. It is the space race. There is jokes that require you to have knowledge of the space race. Because they like one of them goes to Russia to get their sugar at a certain point, and then it's like, oh, we can't let the Russians have a pastry before us, kind of thing. And it's like, why did we just get weirdly political about the 1960s here?
Yeah.
It's very, very strange.
And then in the next scene you have Tony the Tiger leading an insurrection going into were they going into Kellogg's or were they going into Post? I don't fucking know. Who knows?
I think they were going into Kellogg's. It was the Kellogg's mascots like overthrowing, but yeah, no, it's an insurrection joke. It in the six. I got nothing.
Yeah.
A lot of the jokes just weren't jokes at all. Like there's this one at the funeral where like Snap Crackle Pop, maybe the worst characters in the movie. They're just like saying their names, Snap Crackle Pop, which I don't remember them doing like that. Maybe I missed the commercial, but they were just like they were Pokemon, like just
They did
saying
do
their
that.
name.
They did do that in the commercial, but yeah,
Okay,
it was beat like a dead horse.
yeah. Yeah, I didn't remember that, so they just kept doing that over and over again, and I was like, "Why? Why do they keep doing this? Who's laughing?" They also were like, "Oh, I guess we're done doing grocery store appearances. They were like a boy band." And then he said, "Oh, we'll just replace you." There's a lot of jokes that I just were definitely referencing things, but I was just so focused on the weird world that they were trying to build that I
Yeah.
couldn't like even pay attention to the things that they were referencing. And then before I know it, there's like this weird CGI pastry creature running around,
Yeah,
and I don't even know how.
I don't even know what the fuck that was about. Like that was the point of the movie where I was like, okay, I truly have no idea what's happening.
And I'm not gonna lie, I was absolutely playing some video games, had it on the second monitor, not giving it my full attention. So maybe that's on me, but I did hear the entire movie, and there's like this weird subplot of a Kellogg and a Post can't like be together, and one of the Kellogg guy wants Amy Schumer, and I don't know if that even got resolved by the end of it.
I don't think it
I
did. I
I
don't think anything got
I
resolved at the end, other than, I mean, nothing was resolved because they ended the movie with an unfrosted fucking Pop Tart. Like, nobody likes an
Yeah,
unfrosted Pop Tart.
that's true. Yeah. No, the the things that I don't even have like critiques or how they could have made this better. It's just like, why did they make this?
Yeah.
So my pitch to make this better is just 1960s JFK movie starring Bill Burr, where the ending is his assassination and then the movie just
Yeah,
ends.
JFK's
Uh,
or his JFK voice was really good. I will say
it
that.
it was he had a good voice, and he was funny. He was like one of the few like funny people with good delivery
Yeah.
in the movie. Maybe the only one. Bill Burr is. You just look up like Bill Burr JFK scenes. If you're gonna watch anything from this movie, those are the only good things, and those are also the only time like the weirdly political jokes kind of landed for me. Is when like Bill Burr was saying them in a JFK impression.
Yeah.
That's like the only time I was finding that funny, and that was probably all just improv from
Yeah.
Bill Burr. If we're being honest, I don't know how much of the script was actually written, or they just like showed up and did
I
improv,
think Bill Burr
thinking that
literally
they
said
were.
he was on set for like a couple hours.
That tracks. That tracks. Yeah.
Yeah. So yeah, just all around bad movie. Don't recommend watching it.
No, it's mercifully short, but it's not worth the time. It just isn't.
Yeah.
You can look up scenes if you want to. You will get the full effect. I promise you that.
Yeah.
But I think that's our show as we get out of here. It is starting to warm up these days. Big weather talk in a big spot here to end the episode. You know, I don't know about where you guys live, but for me it was like, oh, it's 50, 60 degrees, and then all of a sudden it's just mid to high 80s every day. Like
Yeah.
there was no transition, like 70s. Nah, we went from 50s and 60s straight to mid to high 80s. And I don't really mess with that, but alas, that's up to Mr. Pennsatucky, not up to me. So
I don't get that.
that's the name of the groundhog that like kicks up and is like, if
Oh,
there's
I
gonna be
see.
more winter or summer. Yeah, I think his name is Pennsatucky Phil, and he only has like a 30% accuracy. So really, like he's overrated, washed, and a complete waste of time. Absolute fraud. I could probably do his job better. I won't lie.
Yeah. Don't listen to him. But what you can listen to is the Variant Cast. Every episode, we'll be back here trying to do it bi-weekly. But yeah, we'll be back. So thank you all for listening, and we'll see you next time.
Have a great one.